Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Apostate Prophet Show, the most watched show on the planet. Uh, unless, of course, we count every other show on the planet. David, what's up? How are you doing?
Hey, how you doing, man? Just sending out the link to so everyone knows. Because when people hear that D Wood and the Apostate Prophet got something going down, they can't stay away. We all know that.
So we are talking about Gad Saad and Elon Musk. Actually, Zagros Özkan, who might be here in the chat, kind of brought to my attention that they have been interacting for quite a while, and also sent me a bunch of instances where Elon Musk, engaged with Gad Saad and responded to his remarks and his reports about Islamists and Islam in the West. But the issue is, many of the times it is usually about Islamism and how the influence of Islamist ideas and stuff like that, and how they are taking over and all of these things. But recently he responded to something that is just about Islam. It's not about a modern conflict. It is about Islam. So here is a tweet that Gad Saad made. He often makes these sarcastic tweets. He said, North Africa and the Middle East were once home to indigenous cultures that were non-Islamic, zero Islam. They all eventually became nearly 100% Islamic. Does anyone know how that noble transformation took place? And Elon Musk said, Socratic debate? Question mark. Obviously, joining in on the sarcasm here.
Pretty brutal there. Until the recent wave of the new Dawa guys who are trying to show everyone the truth by running their mouths about how intolerant they are and attacking everyone. Before then, you had lots of Muslims who thought it was their goal to form alliances and to get along with as many people as possible and to marginalize the serious critics of Islam. They wanted it. They really were trying to get along with everyone else. But the new crowd, it's like, let's destroy every potential ally that we could possibly have the moment they say anything we disagree with. And so what I mean is you had all of these guys. You had all the guys over at the Daily Wire. You had Jordan Peterson. They're all like, hey, we are so worried. We're so worried about like trans stuff and woke stuff that we want to form alliances with the Muslim community to deal with this stuff. And then, and what happened? The Dawa guys declared war on all of them at various points over disagreements over Israel and things like that. So they blasted away at Ben Shapiro, blasted away at Jordan Peterson, blasted away at absolutely everyone. Think other people, Pierce Morgan and so on. These are guys who could actually be your potential allies for certain things. And all you do is heap insults and abuse on them and make them absolutely repulsed by you so that they're not going to support and defend you in the future. And what's going to happen with Elon? This might not be enough to do it, but one or two more tweets along these lines, and they're going to be going after him. We will shame and humiliate Elon Musk. And they never seem to understand personality types. Guys, there are certain personality types where the more you try to rain down abuse on them, the more aggressive they become in return. So this will be fun to watch, my friends. Fun to watch.
Sneeko, he reacted to something here and was like, we like to think we would have spoken up about the Holocaust in 1940 or slavery in 1840, but what's happening today in Gaza is worse and everyone is silent. This guy is actually saying here that what is happening today in Gaza, the war, is worse than the Holocaust and slavery.
Yeah, where what was it, like 12 million people killed in the Holocaust, like 6 million Jews, and then millions of other Slavs and so on.
So and slavery, 12 like centuries of people.
12 million people who are being killed and put into camps, work camps, worked until they can't work anymore, then gas tossed in ovens, and that's just like the IDF going after Hamas terrorists, and there are some civilian casualties along the way because these guys hide among civilians, and it's worse. That's worse.
That is
what
true.
A freaking dope! This is the sort of idiotic nonsense you would expect from a guy who assures his fans that the book of the Council of Nicaea was taken out of the Bible.
Look at this. New York Times recently reported this here. They relied on two numbers from two different sources. The breakdown in deaths between fighters and civilians remains unclear and a matter of debate. Earlier in the war, Gazan officials, aka Hamas, suggested that more than 70% of victims were civilians.
Wait, look. So their number was even way off from what Hijab was saying. He was saying it was 100 to 1. He was saying 100 to 1 ratio, and said he was being generous. He was being generous in saying 100 to 1.
Yeah. While an analysis by an Israeli sociologist put the figure at 61%. It seems plausible that the share remains similar today, but also plausible that a lower percentage of deaths are among civilians now that Israel's attacks have become more targeted and the daily toll has declined. So they give both sources, what Hamas says and what an Israeli analyst says, 70% and 61%. We talked quite recently, several weeks ago, about civilian deaths as part of, deaths in a war over history. And what we saw there was very clearly that this number here, 61%, if 61% of deaths in Gaza are civilians right now, this is a remarkably, I don't know.
It's pretty standard. It's
Yeah,
pretty standard. Like we looked up World War II statistics back when we were discussing this, and 2/3 of casualties in World War II, 2/3, so around 65-66% area, were civilian casualties.
Mhm.
And keep in mind, you did have lots of times when it's an army marching against another army. In other words, they're on the battlefield. Almost everyone who's dying are military deaths. When you have things like the invasion of Normandy and so on, it's almost all military deaths. But you have other things like bombing cities and so on that rack up lots of civilian deaths. So even in the case of a war where you do have armies marching out against each other, you still end up with about 2/3 of the deaths are civilian deaths. And somehow Israel is the only place on earth where that is just totally unacceptable in a war.
Yeah. So, long story short, the numbers here, even if we went by a Hamas's suggestion, 70%, and nobody in their right mind to actually trust what Hamas says here in this case. They also never actually, when they give us the number of deaths, they never specify civilian or combatant, because they just count everyone as civilian or just as a regular death. Even going by their number, there's nothing out of the ordinary here. In such a densely populated place as Gaza, where Hamas deliberately hides between and under civilians, having such a rate would be quite normal and very much in line with average civilian casualty ratios over the last 100 years or more. So that would mean that there is a regular war going on, and there is simply no sign of Israel actually, targeting or excessively massacring civilians or anything like that. However, just because it is Israel, people treat it like it is the Holocaust, which is just ironic.
Yeah, and what's interesting here is, we've been talking about what insanely ridiculous, compulsive liars the Dawa guys are. So this is Hamas, right? I really don't trust Hamas, but look at their number. Their number is not insanely exaggerated. In fact, you could argue, hey, I'm not going to fully trust the Hamas's numbers, and you could say I'm not going to fully trust the numbers of an Israeli sociologist, because maybe he's so. Just think of it being somewhere in between, right? Like, let's say it's 65%. It's somewhere in between. It's somewhere in between these two guys. But notice, they're not too far off each other, which means that, that if Hamas is exaggerating, they're exaggerating a little bit, because what you would expect from Hamas, given some of the lies they've told in the past, is earlier in the war, Gazan officials suggested that more than 7,000% of victims were civilians. You'd expect something like that, right? 7,000% of victims were civilians. You'd expect something idiotic like that. Apparently, they catch on to people not trusting them because they misrepresent things and they're trying to be a little more accurate. But just think about this, right? Hamas is massively more accurate in the reporting than someone like Mohammed Hijab. According to Mohammed Hijab, over 99% of deaths are civilian deaths. And not show me one of his followers who cares that he lies like that. Show me one Mohammed Hijab fan who thinks it's at all problematic that he completely just makes things. No, over 99% of deaths are civilian deaths, which no one agrees with. Not the most radical Hamas terrorist would not say that. And that's what Dawa guys are saying on programs like Piers Morgan, right?
I forget about his followers. I messaged with him directly, and I showed this. I messaged with him directly, and I showed to him and confronted him basically on this and said, "Hey, you said this, but the source actually says this, so you're obviously wrong. When are you going to correct yourself?" He responded to me and started getting sarcastic and joking and things like that. And eventually I pushed him again and I said, "Hey, I need a response to this, stop distracting." And then he quit responding. Now he's acting like he's not reading my messages. Yep. So this is I'm sorry, but it's just a very clear. It's very clear proof. He was called out directly. Like I went to him, I confronted him and showed him that he lies, or that he at least got it wrong, that he should acknowledge that it was wrong. But he now thereby proven he lies and he doesn't care. He didn't make a single correction about it. This is just
does not care at all.
This is Islamic Dawah.
And this is but here's the thing. This is a guy who, like his God and like his prophet, doesn't care at all about lying to reach whatever goal he has. In this case, discrediting Israel and supporting Hamas and so on. Doesn't care even slightly if he has to lie and deceive people and deceive all these viewers, deceive millions of people. Who, I mean, let's face it, most of those people did not go back and fact check any of that. So he deceived millions of people and he's completely happy to do that. But this is the guy who's going and speaking in your mosque.
Yeah.
And he's going to explain how Islam is superior and it's better than everything. This guy that we know, it's indisputable, is a chronic compulsive liar. And it's just standard in Dawah. The more you lie, the more popular you become in Dawah, the more they love you. You could be exposed 1,000 times in a row, and the more you lie, the more they will love you. Again, Sheikh Uthman faked a hate crime against himself and did a horrible job of it. It's fake blood squirted all over himself, and that was one thing. But then saying that the guy was arrested and saying the guy's in prison and so on, when anyone can fact check that. And guess how many of his followers care? Not one, not even slightly. He bangs his friend's wife because the guy was dumb enough to send his wife to Sheikh Uthman for marital counseling. And how does Sheikh Uthman respond? He bangs this dude's wife. Not one of his fans care. They just don't care. The more repulsive and evil you are, the more they love you in the Dawah community. And somehow they expect us to take them seriously as the champions of truth and morality.
Joe Biden.
As you know, initially,
Greg Cross. Let's see. What is he talking about, man? He's talking about the president of Mexico. What is even happening here?
Respond.
What is this?
Which one are you watching? I just watched a clip.
Wait, hold on. Let me see.
Conduct of the response in the Gaza Strip has been.
How is this happening, ladies and gentlemen?
I think that, as you know,
oh my goodness,
what in the world is going on, man?
The president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want
Sisi. He said he said the president of Mexico, not Egypt. The president of Mexico did not want to open the borders with Gaza. The president of Mexico. This guy. This totally makes sense for why they came up with rules about who you know, needing 2 keys to launch nuclear weapons and stuff, because you end up with a guy like this with total power. You need someone with a 2nd key.
President of Mexico, Sisi.
President of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate.
He talked to the president of Mexico to open the gates of Gaza.
That's some really, really good job there, man. He talked to the president of Mexico to open the border of Gaza for humanitarian aid. Whoa. How in the world do people actually think that this guy should be re-elected? Should be pushed again for a re-election? How in the world does this make sense?
It makes perfect sense from a certain perspective. If you have control of the guy who can be elected, and you control his teleprompter, and you tell him what to push and what to say and so on, it makes perfect sense. This is exactly who you'd want in power. A total, absolute puppet. I'm not going to make fun of a guy for losing his faculties, but for whoever says this is the guy we want in power, he can't do anything. But instead of him, resting and watching TV and enjoying himself in his old age, we're going to make this guy president because we control his teleprompter. They're absolute evil scumbags.
The issue is the Democratic Party doesn't care about Israel. Some of them do, like Joe Biden apparently allegedly does, but they are so much pressured by their progressivist, ridiculous fan base to change their stance on Israel that it's just it's almost a matter of time until they finally give in to their voters, to their base, and say, okay, you know what, yeah, Israel, we will stop supporting you. Whereas on the other hand, I don't like Donald Trump at all. I don't want to vote for the guy, but I know that that under his administration there would be, again, total support. There would be support for those who actually need support right now, and they wouldn't be giving into that whole narrative of like, oh, there's a genocide happening. This is clearly genocide. Let us, let's not support the genociders. Let's support those who actually want to commit a genocide.
They seriously don't get it. They would, as much as they are concerned about the avalanche of apostasy, as much as they are panicking about the avalanche of apostasy, it would be orders of magnitude worse if they weren't constantly, relentlessly being protected by politicians and the media and educators and the entertainment industry. Everyone's been protecting Islam from criticism for decades. And the new generation of Dawa guys say, let's attack everyone in all directions and see how that works. You might actually get to the point where these guys aren't protecting you anymore. And if you thought you had an avalanche of apostasy, wait and see if it becomes completely acceptable to expose your lies on mainstream news programs and so on. Watch what happens. And watch what happens if college professors are no longer saying Islam is a wonderful religion. It's the best thing ever. Imagine if they stop doing that. You thought you got problems now with the avalanche? You thought 24% of young Muslims leaving Islam is a problem? Try 90%.
Gad Saad said in another tweet here, demography is destiny. It is going to get a lot worse because the West is in a progressive purity death spiral. This was in response to pro-Palestine protesters attempting to breach the security fences outside the White House. And here Elon Musk says we must turn this around.
I haven't seen any of this. I only saw the one response to Gad Saad, but yeah, I didn't know he's been chiming in on all this stuff.
Yeah, he's been following and he's been interacting with Gad Saad a lot. And Dr. Gad Saad, he has good takes on this stuff, and he has been becoming increasingly. I remember when I had a chat with him. When was that? A few years ago. He was like, "Yeah, I just want to, not be too direct with speaking about all of these things. I just want to be a little bit subtle and all that." Now he's just going all out on Twitter recently. That's this last year.
Yeah, that's what's happening, right? So you have the Dawa guys, and they're like, "Oh, we'll show you. We'll be more aggressive. We'll be more in your face. Ha ha! People going to be impressed by our intolerance." And what actually happens is they they embolden the opposition who doesn't like to
Mhm.
take crap from people. They're like, wait, you think you're going to control me like that? Let me tell you what I think. And they also make it more, the Dawa guys make it more acceptable to respond in certain ways. Because, I mean, think, if we were just eating a Quran, if we're just eating a Quran, I don't know what the atheist reaction would be. I would expect it would be mixed. But if I were just doing that for no reason, I would be back like 10 years ago, I would have been overwhelmingly blasted by Christians for doing something like that. When it's, oh, we're going after your wives, we're going to go after your families, then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, eat that Quran. We don't care. Yeah, eat the Quran. Yeah, you got to stand up to that. And
Ate
so
the grain.
they make it acceptable. They make the mockery, the Muhammad cartoons, the Quran desecrations. It's the Dawa clowns and all their mindless drones who are making this completely acceptable to millions and millions of people.
Noble person. Hey, Jew, you know nothing about our faith. Me, well, I do know a lot about it. I was born in the Middle East. Noble person. By noble person, of course, he's referring to Muslim person. He also always uses the noble religion instead of Islam,
or
the noble fighters or stuff
I
like that.
detect hints of sarcasm.
Yeah. Hey, Jew, but you don't speak Arabic, so shut your Jewy mouth.
It's the noble person. That's funny.
Well, you are from Pakistan, so you don't speak Arabic. I, on the other hand, speak Arabic as my mother tongue, boy. Noble person. Hey, Zionist baby killer, you are a descendant of pigs and monkeys. Me. Oh, I see that you've read your holy books. Noble person. Shut up, you filthy Jew. My faith is respectful and peaceful.
Elon Musk. Oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
It's just awesome that he seems to be following Gad Saad's tweets in general. That's pretty cool.
I know, but and this is especially interesting that Elon Musk is laughing to this and engaging with this, because this is not just about some political stuff. This is actually about Muslims.
That's straight up mockery. That's straight up mockery of the Ummah. Yeah.
Yeah. Muslims reacting to Jews and insulting Jews, and then even him referencing the holy books, the Quran, which says that Allah turned certain Jews into pigs and monkeys and things like that. And Elon Musk is engaging with this, and people are seeing this and are like, what is happening? What is happening? Why is Elon Musk engaging with this? Is he going to be an Islamophobe now? Is it because he was paid by the Jews? Gad Saad said, many people have recently claimed in my X post that the real threat to the world are the Jews and their Zionist plan. And at first it was like, of course, people were voting Islam, and then some people started
sharing
the Islamist neo-Nazi gang that has recently been forging a great alliance, shared it and tried to terrorize it, and then they took it over and turned it into Zionism. I voted here for Islam proudly, I have to say. I completely outing myself here.
Traitor.
The greater threat facing the West is Islam or Zionism. 56% said Zionism, after it was the other way around, just to troll it and take it over. And he's referencing that and saying, many people have recently claimed in my X post that the real threat to the world are the Jews and their Zionist plans. Could someone explain their logic whilst fully identifying themselves? In other words, if your arguments are convincing and veridical, you don't need to hide your identity nor insult. Simply present your best arguments. Here is my argument for why I think we need to be suspicious of all Mordecai Silversteins. I am utterly terrified when I see Chabad extremists boarding a plane. Most of the 44,000 terror attacks since 9/11 alone in nearly 70 countries were committed by Chabad Torah extremists, who usually scream Chinese food is not kosher before committing their heinous acts of terrorism.
He's funny.
And, Elon Musk also laughed to this, by the way. He also reacted with laughter to this one. So it's just getting very extreme.
Isn't it insane? Like, you've got a religion that calls for the violent subjugation of the entire world, the destruction of all opposition, the destruction of all other ideologies and so on. And then on the other hand, you've got Israelis who want this tiny little piece of land that's like the size of a postage stamp.
posted
on a
size
map,
of
and
a
they say,
palm.
hey, we want this little piece of land, and people are saying that's a bigger threat. That's a bigger threat to the world.
Gad Saad said, let me re-explain this important point about Islamic theology. The Quran has two periods, the Meccan and the Medinan. In the former, Muhammad was more peaceful and tolerant. Where was I? Peaceful and tolerant. I just looked somewhere else and lost where I was. Wait a minute.
Tolerant in his proselytizing.
In his proselytizing, and as such, he attracted few adherents. In the latter, he was astoundingly less peaceful and tolerant, and the ideology grew. Now, whenever two statements in the Quran contradict one another, the later one abrogates, nullifies the earlier one. Hence, if in the Meccan period it says love X, and in the Medinan period it says kill X, X better start running fast. When peaceful verses are quoted, they have often been abrogated by later verses. Professor Dr. Gad Saad, he, they typing on stolen land.
Yeah. My only critique there is it's important to keep in mind that when, according to Muslim sources, according to their own historical works, even though Muhammad was preaching, hey, to you be your religion and to me be my religion and so on in Mecca, he still had his goal set on conquering, because according to Al-Tabari, he's actually telling his tribe, guys, if you all just unite around me, we will take over Arabia. Everyone's going to submit to us. The Christians are going to submit to us. Everyone's going to submit to us, and so on. So it was a plan even in Mecca, which means that all this, peace and tolerance, it's all for show. It's all for show during that time.
Faux show.
Faux show.
Faux show. And here is one where Elon said, your talent at dry comedy is excellent.
It is awesome that Elon's following Gad Saad. That's awesome.
He's just and Gad Saad said, well, thank you, my good sir. But here, this is what he was saying. So I'm a Muslim and I'm still learning about Islam. Islam is too deep to be learned with a few words or lessons, but I'm not underestimating your intelligence. But because I have been studying it for years, I tell you that even many Muslims do not know much about it. Gad Saad then said, I agree. You have to truly immerse yourself in Arabic philology to understand that kill, 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 death to Jews, kill, 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 really means kill the Jews with love and kindness. It's only when I delved deeply into the beauty of faux genocidal edicts that I realized how peaceful it was. And this is where this is
awesome, man. I had no clue. I thought Elon responded to one of Gad's tweets, and Elon's checking them all out. This is awesome.
Organization of Islamic Cooperation is made up of 56 countries and the noble land of peaceful Palestine. How did each of these countries, which once had zero Islam, become Islamic? I presume it was largely driven by the Socratic method. I've often heard that Islamic brutal military conquests were actually rooted in peaceful, Socratic, brutal dialoguing.
He's funny.
Brutal dialoguing.
Socratic.
Peaceful, Socratic, brutal, bloody dialogue.
And so later I
talk to my sword.
Yeah.
Kafir.
Following. North Africa and the Middle East were once home to indigenous cultures that were non-Islamic, zero Islam. They all eventually became nearly 100% Islamic. Does anyone know how that noble transformation took place? And Elon Musk wrote, Socratic debate, ? I love this guy. I love him.
We all do.
Satire, sarcasm, and humor, as I've explained before, is the way that you oftentimes cut through mounds of bull. In any case, here are two polls that I'd like to cover. The final results are the first one. By far, the greatest number of terror attacks globally have been committed by Islamic extremists or Talmud extremists. 30,821 people answered the poll. Right, so remember, Islamic.
Look at that.
Talmud extremists.
Oh my goodness.
Who
I mean, who greatest number? Yeah, at that point, it's I don't think even the people who are voting Talmud extremists take that seriously. It's just we can say this, and we think it's funny to say this. My goodness.
Who in the world? Do even Islamists, do even Muslims themselves believe this? Seriously, anyone who voted here, Talmud extreme, do they even believe this? Does a regular Muslim believe this? I doubt it.
And the results are 44% said Islamic extremists and 56% said Talmudic extremists. So there are many more terror attacks around the world from
I'm so sick of all these Talmudic extremist terrorists, man. What is this? Like, leave us alone. Leave us alone. Every day I hear of people blowing themselves up in the name of the Talmud,
all the time.
shooting people because of the Talmud. What is this, man? Flights being taken over and flown into buildings because of the Talmud. I'm so sick of this. Somebody needs to do something about this, man.
Talmudic extremists. Now, a lot of the supporters of Palestine and the noble faith said, "Aha, Gad Saad got screwed by his own poll. He thought that it would be
Yeah, you guys aren't making a good point when you do that, right? You make a point that there are way more lying, insane people out there than people think. With this whole, it's just a couple of bad apples and so on. And like, whoa, you guys really hate Jews and love terrorists, don't you?
Yeah. Yep. That's what's happening.
So he's doing it. He's doing a bang up job. He should do this every day and get the same results just to expose what's really going on.
I like that you all band together to send the mob to answer the polls in the way that you do, because it shows the extent to which we have a problem. So 56%
Does show it.
big extremists. Now, there is a website that keeps track of terror attacks.
Religionofpeace.com.
Alone in nearly 70 countries, and 44,000 plus terror attacks have been ascribed to the noble Islamic faith. None have been ascribed to Talmudic extremists. There's the second one. The greater threat facing the West is Zionism. Now, remember, Zionism is the idea that Jews should have their own land, probably the size of New Jersey, maybe less. Surrounding it is about 99.6% of land mass, and the Jewish land is about 0.4%, where there have been Jews on that land well before there were any, thousands of years before Islam existed.
When you look at things from an Islamist perspective, you have to put possibilities, logic, all of that aside. Okay, none of that is applicable. Logic is out of the window. Who cares about law? Screw logic. Logic is stupid. Logic is un-Islamic. Don't care about logic. Don't care about logic. Ignore logic. Just take what Daniel Kikachu said as a fact. Ignore logic. That's how it works. Alhamdulillah. That's the beauty of Islam. And this just shows that Islam is the religion of truth.
So the question is, the greater threat facing the West, is it Zionism or is it Islam? And again, some folks with large followings who are not fans of the Jews asked their fans to come in and vote on this. And so 127,523 people voted, and 56% said Zionism was a greater threat to the West than Islam. 44% said that it was Islam. Okay.
Of course. And we all know that Zionism is just there. We all see the Zionist preachers and Zionist apologists out there saying, hey, we want to take over. And once we take over, we will implement Zionist law. And we will bring back slavery and child marriage. And those who leave Zionism will be executed under our apostasy laws. And we are proud of this. That's what all the Zionists are saying. This is just the ridiculousness of it. Like, there are people out there who are actually talking about Jews and Zionism as if it was like, taking over or being an existential threat. Meanwhile, they are siding with the Islamists who actually explicitly say that they want to take over and overthrow your system and implement everything that you pretend to be against. What kind of insanity is this?
Islam has conquered 56 countries and the Palestinian territories. Zionism is a land that is the size of a small state in the United States, where 20% of the population are Arab Israelis. When I ask people, well, how do you arrive at the conclusion Zionism is the greatest threat to the West? Usually the argument is it's a range of Jew-hating conspiracies. It's the Jews that control banking. It's the Jews that control our jobs. It's the politicians who are hoodwinked by the Israeli Zionist lobby. Zionism, in an indirect way, is much more dangerous, according to those folks, than Islam is. And if you point to any specific, say, terror attack, each of those conquests turns out to either be not have been done by Muslims. It was a false flag operation. It was really Jews who did it. And they say it. It's very clear. 9/11 was really Jews who did it. Or they'll say, to the extent that they'll admit that it was the noble faith that was the instigator of a particular terror attack or military conquest or colonial conquest or subjugation.
Exactly. So that's the point here. And yes, that's what's happening. And Elon Musk is an Islamophobe. That's what we have concluded so far. David, what do you think about all of this?
Oh, he was just saying Israel is about the size of a
peanut,
a small U.S. state, and so I looked it up. I recalled hearing New Jersey, that it's about the same size as New Jersey. So I looked that up, and yeah, they're about the same size. They're about the same size and about the same population. They're both around 9 million people and about the same landmass size. So for anyone who is wondering what kind of landmass we're talking about, there is this little speck of land in the middle of a sea of massive Muslim countries, and this place is about the size of New Jersey, and it is the target of jihadis everywhere.
They're thieves. They betrayed us. IDF says who, and Gazans say Hamas. You can hear the Hamas. But of course, this is they were all forced and paid to say these things. So you can't trust them.
I mean, think about it. So a lot of these people. Of course, there are Hamas supporters all over the place here, and but there are people here who are living pretty normal lives. They had their homes and their kids went to school, and they, some of them had jobs and so on. And then Hamas did a big attack, and then their building gets leveled, and now they have to figure out what they're going to do. And they have to pack up what belongings they can bring with them to go figure out where they're going to be. Why? Because of Hamas.
As my dear friend, whose book I have, Sajid Lipham, likes to say.
Yeah, he gives awesome advice to kids, and his advice to kids in his children's book is
stay away from Islam.